In this video we're going to have a look at a few new concepts, including variables. We're going to have a look at how we can combine variables with the print function we looked at earlier, and talk a little bit about some different error types that we might encounter. If we return to our previous example of the Hello World program, it's not particularly exciting, and one thing we could do to make it more interesting would be to say hello to a specific person. So to do that we're going to need to use something called a variable, and all that is a reference to some information. So we've stored some information in our program somewhere, and to get that information back we need to use the name of the variable. In this case I'm going to call my variable username, and notice the syntax I use there. The first word is all lowercase, and any subsequent words have a capital for the first letter of that subsequent word, and there are no spaces anywhere. That's something that we call camel case, and it's a good habit to get into to ensure that you use consistent variable names that you can use throughout your program without causing any errors. So username, I'm just going to say in this case John. So now I need to use this information that we've got in our variable in this print function here. So rather than saying hello world, I'm going to delete that out, and I want to have username in like that. Now so we've got hello and then username, but if I run this you'll see we've got another problem. Another error message comes up saying invalid syntax in this line here, line 3. Now that's because we need to tell the print function exactly what's happening here. We're going to pass in multiple pieces of information. So we've got the hello string, and then we've got a variable. And to combine those two together I just need to put a comma there. So with that comma it will automatically put a space in between, and it will have the username, which is John in this case, after the word hello. I could also use the plus symbol, but when I run that you'll see there's no space in the output. I could of course fix that by putting a space there, or a space at the end of the username string. But in this case it's preferable to just use the standard hello string with a comma, and that'll work just fine. Now again, this is not an amazing program. We could take it a step further by getting the user to type their own name in. So rather than having the name hard-coded in here, we can use another function. In this case it's the input function, and just like the print function you have the word itself followed by quotes, and then in those quotes you can put a text string that you want to display on the screen for the user. So in this case we might write enter your name, and note that I put a space there as well. It just makes it a little nicer when the user types in their name, there's a space after that colon. So if I run this program now, you can see we've got this little gap here which we wouldn't have otherwise. So now if I type in the word John, press enter, it's going to work automatically, and it's taken that text there and put it in the output string here. Let's just test it with a different name just to make sure it's working properly, and we'll try James, and now it says hello James of course. Okay, so pause the video and make sure you can get that up and running and working for yourself. So hopefully now you've had a quick play with how to get some user input, some simple user input, and combine it with a print function to create some custom output. Let's just go back a second and have a look at some different types of errors. It's really important to understand what's happening in your program so that you can fix it quickly. So the first type of error is a syntax error. Basically this means if you haven't followed the rules. So in terms of the punctuation, where do you put the brackets, where do you put the quotes, where do you put the commas, all of those kinds of things. They'll give you syntax errors. Secondly, you'll get runtime errors if you try and do something that isn't possible, like dividing by 0 for example. And finally, and often the most dangerous type of error, is a semantic error. And this is when the program doesn't actually crash. It runs and it seems like everything's going fine, but actually the output isn't quite what you want. This is a really dangerous type of error, and you need to really carefully test your programs to make sure that you don't have any of these errors in there. So now we're going to move into starting to build our larger project, and this project is going to be a simple guessing game. The rules of this game: a number is randomly generated between 1 and 100. The user is going to try and guess that number, and they'll be told if they're too high or too low, and we'll repeat this process until they guess correctly. These are the basic rules of the game, and we'll add in some more complications as we go. It's a fantastic exercise for learning to program because it covers a lot of the key concepts. So for your first challenge, I need you to create a new Python file on the website and use the print function like we've looked at before to create some welcome messages. You can also ask for the user's name and then welcome them personally to the game. So pause the video now have a try at that and then come back and you can see my version of this challenge. Okay, so hopefully you've got that working. Here's a version I came up with, and I've added a few extra print statements and a few other things to make it look a little bit nicer when we have our output over here on the right. You can see I've just added these lines of asterisks here to break up the content that we're printing out. All that is a string, just like the text that we have here. And I've also added in some empty lines. To do an empty line, you can just add a print function like that with no string inside it. Then of course we have our input section where we're getting the user to enter their name, storing it in a variable called name, and then saying welcome name after that, so we can test out that that's working. And it prints a welcome message and then following some instructions after that. You might want to add in another empty line there just to format that output a little bit nicer. Okay, so that's looking good. Have a go at adding some of those touches to your game. Make sure you save it online, and we'll move on to the next video.